Part 1. The Past. A Lonely Forest.
Long ago, before humans carved names into the bones of the earth and built roads where roots once ruled, there lived a wolf known by no name but his own silence. He wandered the cold edges of forgotten lands, his paws worn smooth from seasons of endless walking, his eyes the color of storm clouds. The other wolves called him Ghost, Shadow, Omen. But he was none of those things. He was simply Riven. He had once belonged to a pack, a great, strong family that moved like wind over snowdrifts and drank from the same silver river under the moon. They were not royalty, but they ruled their little corner of the wilderness with harmony and teeth. Riven had a younger brother, Fen, who always ran just behind him, biting his tail in play, tripping on his oversized paws. Their mother would nuzzle them both with the same tenderness that softened the sharpness of winter. Their father had been a legend in the forest. Riven wanted to be just like him. But legends don't save you from fire. It was the last winter Riven knew warmth. The humans came one evening when the snow had begun to melt, carrying noise and machines that smelled of iron and oil. They brought thunder and sticks and beasts that screamed as they rolled over trees. The ground shook, birds fled, the deer vanished, and wolves were hunted, not for food, not for safety, but for sport. That night, the pack scattered. Riven's father howled for them to split. His mother pushed Fen toward Riven and whispered only one word: "Run." And so they did. But Fen was not fast enough. Riven reached the river's edge, cold and swollen from the melting frost. He turned, waiting, hoping, sniffing. But only the stink of smoke reached his nose. Hours passed, then a day. Then, two. Fen never came. After that, something inside Riven broke. Not cracked, not bruised, broke. He no longer howled with the wind. He no longer sang beneath the moon. The sounds that used to rise from his throat like instinct were gone, strangled by guilt, swallowed by silence. The other wolves he met later, stray loners, distant cousins of packs long gone, spoke in murmurs. Some had seen his pack fall. Others had heard of the fire. All gave him space. Riven didn't want comfort. He wanted to forget. But memory clung like snow, never melting, always cold. He wandered for seasons, alone. He slept beneath black ash trees with bark like burned skin. He crossed mountains where no scent lingered. He hunted, not for joy, not even for hunger, but because living meant something had to die. He didn't chase. He waited, patient, precise, empty. One night, under a full moon that lit the forest silver white, Riven dreamed. It had been months since his last dream. In it, Fen stood before him, still a pup, still with those oversized paws, still smiling. His fur was unmarred by ash, and his eyes shimmered with the innocence time had buried. "Why did you survive?" Fen asked. Riven could not answer. He woke with snow clinging to his muzzle and a tear frozen just beneath his eye. He shook it off and promised himself he would not dream again. It was safer that way. Dreams were liars. They brought back things that were long buried, things that could not be saved. Yet the forest, in its quiet patience, was not done with him. Because somewhere, beneath the same moon, something stirred. A presence unfamiliar yet faintly warm. And though Riven did not know it yet, fate, wild and tangled as it was, had started to pull him towards something he had long abandoned. Hope. Part 2. The Meeting, the She-Wolf and the Silence. The forest had changed. Riven felt it first in the wind. It no longer carried the bitterness of ash or the memory of screams. It had softened. There was something gentler in its current, something that wrapped around his fur instead of slicing through it. A shift not seen, but sensed, like the hush before a snowfall or the moment the stars blink into the sky. He stood on a ridge overlooking the valley, where the trees grew taller, older, wiser. This was land he'd never walked before. No scent of human, no steel or fuel. Just the earth, breathing slow and steady like a slumbering beast. Still, Riven had no destination. He never did. He simply moved, like grief, like wind. It was on the second night of his wander through this untouched place that he first saw her. She was standing by a frozen stream, nose raised, listening. Her fur was white as bone, but not lifeless, soft with silver and glints of light that shimmered like dew. She was younger, leaner, with a gaze that held curiosity rather than caution. She looked like winter's daughter, carved from ice but warm in soul. Riven froze. He had seen other wolves before. He had crossed paths, but none stayed, none approached, and he never invited them to. This one didn't run. She tilted her head slightly, ears flicking in amusement or confusion. He couldn't tell which. Then she did something unexpected. She sat down. No threat, no challenge, just silence shared. Minutes passed, then more. Riven lowered himself slowly, keeping distance but matching her calm. For a long time, neither moved. Two wolves beneath a sky littered with stars, separated by space but united in stillness.
The wind shifted. Her scent reached him. Clean, crisp, laced with pine and something faintly sweet, like wildflowers pressed between old books. There was no fear in it, only presence, real and steady. Then, softly, she spoke, not with words, but with her eyes. And in those eyes, Riven saw something he hadn't faced in years. Recognition. Not of who he was, but of what he was. Not a ghost, not a shadow, just a wolf. Wounded, yes. Silent, yes. But still breathing, still here. He left before dawn. He returned the next night. She was there again, same place, as if she had been waiting. This time, she rose when he approached, stepping slowly across the snow. Not challenging, not submissive, just present. They circled each other like a ritual from ancient times. Tails low, movements slow. She sniffed him once. He let her. She licked the air beside his cheek. He closed his eyes. Still, no words, no names. Wolves do not need them. Over the days that followed, they met again and again. The meetings became routine, then comfort, then something sacred. They did not touch often, but when they did, it was not out of instinct. It was permission, a nuzzle, a shared breath, a silence that healed instead of cut. She never asked about his past. He never asked about hers. But one evening, while they lay beneath a fallen oak, her voice came in a low, gentle rumble. "I used to howl," she said, "before the fire took my mother." Riven flinched. She looked at him. "You too?" He nodded. "Once." "I haven't howled since," she whispered. "It feels dangerous. Like if I do, the past will find me again." Riven stared at the sky. "I forgot how," he said, his voice hoarse from years of disuse. She leaned against him, gently, fur brushing fur. "Maybe we can remember together." He didn't answer, but for the first time in seasons, Riven did not pull away. Her name, he would learn much later, was Lyra. But to him, she was always the wolf who did not run. The one who waited, the one who stayed. She never filled the space his brother had left. That void was too old, too deep. But she built something beside it. Not over it, not against it. Just beside. Like planting a flower next to a grave. Letting both things exist. And so, Riven began to change. Subtle things at first. He hunted less from need and more from instinct. He watched birds. He listened to trees. He lay in the sun. He even slept without nightmares. Sometimes. But the past is a long shadow, and fate does not sleep forever. Because, far beyond the valley, on roads wrapped in dust and rust, a human engine stirred again. The machines were waking, and fire, once fed, always finds new wood to burn. And Riven would soon have to choose between the quiet peace he had found and the wild howl rising once again in his blood.
Part 3. The Choice, a Howl to Break the Silence. Winter came late that year. Snow fell in soft silence over the valley, draping the forest in white robes and quieting the world beneath. Every branch bowed with frost, streams slowed to ice, and somewhere deep in that frozen stillness, two wolves lay curled together beneath the roots of an old cedar, breathing in rhythm with the sleeping forest. Riven and Lyra. Their bond was not loud or wild. It was quiet, like old promises, like the hush of falling snow. They didn't need to speak to know what they meant to each other. In the way she watched the sky before sleep, he knew she was still afraid. In the way he twitched during dreams, she knew he still carried weight too heavy to name. But in one another, they had found something sacred, a reason to stay. Then came the sound. Not thunder, not growls, but something colder. A drone, a hum, a mechanical rhythm foreign to nature. Human. It came first as a whisper in the distance, carried by wind, like the memory of fire returning in a new form. Then came the sense. Oil, fuel, metal, death. Wolves know these smells. They don't forget. They stain the air.
Lyra lifted her head first, alert, still. Riven's ears turned forward, eyes narrowing. They both knew what it was. The fire had come back. The humans came in packs now too. Not hunters, developers. They marked the trees with orange lines. They planted metal stakes in the ground. They spoke in loud voices and held glowing devices. Riven and Lyra watched from the ridgeline for days. He felt the forest tighten under their presence, as if the land itself was holding its breath. The deer fled, the foxes vanished, even the crows were uneasy. "They won't stop," Lyra said one evening, her voice barely above the wind. "Not until they take everything." Riven didn't answer. He had no faith in words. But his silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of choice, of thought, of battle inside his bones. That night, he dreamt of Fen again. But this time, Fen wasn't a pup. He was older, scarred, a version that might have lived. He stood beneath the moon, looking at Riven with eyes that held both sorrow and pride. "You're not just surviving anymore," Fen said. "So what will you do when the forest stops surviving too?" Riven woke before dawn, and he knew. They had two options. Run again, disappear into another distant wood, try to build something new, far from machines and men. Or stay and fight. Not with teeth, not with claws. Wolves could not destroy roads or machines, but they could protect. They could make themselves known, heard, seen. But it would cost them. Lyra stared at him long and hard when he explained it. "You mean," she said softly, "we howl?" Riven met her eyes. Yes. It was the first time he had spoken in days. The word felt foreign on his tongue, yet full of meaning. A howl was not just a sound. It was a signal, a declaration. It said, "We are here. We belong. We remember." And maybe, just maybe, if others heard them, wolves, humans, spirits of the forest, something might change. So that night, beneath the fullest moon they had ever seen, they climbed to the highest ridge. Snow glistened beneath them. The valley spread wide, open, vulnerable. Far in the distance, machines blinked red and gold, lights without warmth. Riven stood still, breath forming clouds in the cold. Lyra was beside him. She didn't wait. She threw her head back and let out a sound that cracked the air like lightning over still water.
It wasn't perfect, it wasn't elegant, but it was real. It was hers. Riven felt it before he heard it in himself, a pressure rising like water behind a dam, a voice long buried beneath years of silence. He opened his mouth and howled. At first it hurt, like stretching old wounds, but then it swelled, powerful and full, rising over the trees, echoing off stone and snow. His howl joined hers, wrapped around it, soared above it. And in that moment, for the first time since Fen died, Riven was not alone. The valley heard them. The forest listened. And somewhere, distant but not absent, other howls answered. A pack, a resistance, a voice for the voiceless. The fire would come, yes, but now it would be met with spirit. Not rage, not revenge, but presence. And presence was powerful. Sometimes it was enough. Seasons would pass. Some trees would fall. Some wounds would return. But so would the howls. Because now, every full moon, a chorus echoes across that valley, rising, ancient, defiant. And among them are two wolves standing side by side. Not ghosts, not shadows. Just love. Just survival. Just Riven and Lyra. Together.